Hello, thank you for joining us and welcome to our presentation for our final project for Engineering 06 Winter Quarter. We did the dice game option. We chose the game Ship Captain Crew. So I'm Zach.
I'm Shelly.
I'm Sun Wu.
And we're going to be giving you guys a quick demonstration of how the game works with its functionality and multiplayer integration, and then we'll be diving a little bit deeper into the code and explore how we achieve some of these things. So go ahead, Shelly, and take us away with the rules and the demonstration.
Yeah, so the rules of the game are roll a 6, 5, and 4 in that order with the 5 die you saw at the bottom of the app. As you can see, when I press the rules button, it takes us to the PDF displaying the rules. And something similar happens for the help button and the remote play help button. It takes us to a Windows tab displaying all the descriptions of the features and the rules of the game. So for demonstration purposes, I'll be player 1 since Sun Wu will be player 2, and I'll go first. As you can see, I rolled my 5 die. I didn't get a 6, so I roll again. I rolled a 6 and a 5, which
matey
plays the sound representing each image. I got a ship and a pirate, and then I roll again. Then I got the 4 representing the image. And I end my turn here, which gives me a score of 7 for the remaining 2 die.
So now it's my turn, and I'm going to update my table to get Shelly's score, and it'll display on my MATLAB. And then I'm just going to follow the same procedure. I'm going to roll, hope I get a 6, 5, 4 in that order. And unfortunately, I didn't. So I'm going to end my turn, and it's now Shelly's turn.
And so since he finished, I update my table, then I roll again, same rules apply. I roll a 4 with the remaining 2 die being my score. I didn't roll a 4 yet, so my score will be 0.
So now I'll update my table once again. Same procedures. Hit roll. Don't get anything. Don't get my 6, 5, 4, so I end my turn.
And so I update my table over here, then I roll. So since I already rolled 3 times, the roll button doesn't work anymore, so I need to end my turn.
So now update my table. I'll play my turn. I don't get my 6, 5, 4 once again, so then I'm just going to end my turn, and then Shelly will update her table, and it'll display the final scores.
Yeah, the final score is the number of wins you get. So for each win, you get 1 point. For each loss, you get 0. And for ties, we both get a point. And since it didn't happen in this game, for the remaining rules, if you rolled a 6, 5, and 4 on your first try, then you can roll again to get a higher score with the remaining 2 die. And once you're done, you can play again, which clears out the table, and then you continue playing the game, or you can just exit out.
All right, thank you guys very much for that demonstration. So next up, we'll be discussing how we achieved our core and reach features, and we'll talk about each individual's breakdown of how they implemented stuff into our main file, starting with Shelly.
Yeah, so I was in charge of rolling the die, well, making the function for the dice roll and creating the rules and help buttons and the remote play help and edit fields. So first off, for the roll buttons, I created a Wins Opens command, which opens up a PDF into a Windows tab using this command. For the animation, I just changed the visibility of the GIF file. So initially it's off, and I turn it back on for less than a second and turn it back off. And for the sound files, I implemented those using these commands, where it reads an audio file that I found off the internet and then plays it after we click on the appropriate die, which, as you can see here, the image click function for each of the 5 die. It checks if the image has been clicked for a 6, 5, and 4. Going back to the roles button, I was in charge of making sure the die rolled a random number. So I made switch cases for each of the dies, like case 1, case 2, etc. to 1, 6, and then case 7 is when we end the turn and the die resets to 0.
All right, thank you, Shelly. So next I'll be talking about my contributions to the game file, and I primarily worked on the core game files and the logic behind the game. I also got to design that awesome background for our game for the GUI with the dock and the X and the little island there. So primarily I went in, had to figure out how to get the roll function to kind of sync up and work with a reroll feature. So basically we have these 3 if statements that are part of our main workhorse for the roll function. And they basically will have, there's an internal round counter and an internal player turn counter that will basically activate these if statements and our roll counter, and basically will assign the images that Shelly put with her switch case statements over here that basically get that to work. But the difficulty was once you've initially assigned all those values, how do you get the game to check to see which dice to re-roll? And the way that we did that was by the user input from the image click functions, and we're using a negation logical array to basically check which images haven't been changed, and then those are the images that we re-roll. And so I'm pretty proud of getting that all up and running. The next thing that I worked on was the end turn button. So the end turn button has a lot of the end game scoring written into it, and the end game scoring function I thought was pretty clever, because basically it's using the exact same logical array, and it's basically checking which images have been changed, and then if those images are greater, if the images that haven't been changed are greater than 0, then that means you don't have all 3 of your dice, and so you do get a score of 0. But if you do, then it sums those total of the dice remaining and it outputs that. So again, very, very cool functions, very proud of those because it got the app up and working, and it was pretty cool. So next, next Sun will be presenting on how he integrated multiplayer.
So what I contributed to this is I worked with ThingSpeak to allow for multiple MATLABs to communicate one another and update. And this right here is at the end of the end turn button. And what this does is that it keeps track of the score. So it'll get a score from round 1 and it'll upload it to ThingSpeak, as you can see here. So this left field chart would be player 1 and the right one would be player 2. And one of the troubles I had with this was to ensure that when you're doing a ThingSpeak write command, you don't have another one right next to it, or else it'll break MATLAB because it can't write 2 things in quick succession. And another thing I added is that it also keeps track of the round and player turn to ensure that the score, that when it gets updated, it's the correct round and player turn. And you can see this right here. This would be the player turn, and then the round number. And moving on to another thing I worked on is the update table. And this basically makes sure that when a player ends their turn, the opposing player, when they update the table, they get the correct round and player turn number. And so then when they update it, it also updates the score, which was recorded as you saw on the ThingSpeak. And that is what I contributed in terms of the multiplayer functionality. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks.